Welcome to the Stone Split Strength Path Guide. I am Wins. The most detailed Hengblade guide for where winds meet is here. A single video teaching you the correct way to play Hengblade and top-tier strategies. With the release of the new version, the long-awaited Stone Split Strength Path has finally been announced. I've taken a rough look. It seems to be using the version from last November on the Chinese server. At this time, Stone Split Strength is neither particularly strong nor weak, so you don't need to be overly concerned. Now, to learn new martial arts combinations. First, you must understand their relevant mechanisms. The combination for Stone Split Strength is SNOWPARTING Blade and Phalanxbane Blade. These two martial arts share a common resource called Blade Momentum. Above the skill bar, you can see the current Blade Momentum value. Blade Momentum restores naturally over time. Some skills require consuming Blade Momentum. Some skills can recover Blade Momentum. Regarding specific details, we will introduce them while learning the skills. Let's start with the SNOWPARTING Blade. The core skills of SNOWPARTING Blade are Light Charge skill, Heavy Pursuit skill, and Special skill. The Light Attack Charge skill is Grave Frost. The effect is swinging forward with a 4-hit attack and recovering half a bar of Blade Momentum. But because its damage output is somewhat low, it is not the primary damage skill. Instead, it is used to lead into the second core skill, the Heavy Pursuit skill, Snowbreak Spring. This skill requires equipping the Hengblades Gold Inner Way, Frostclad Knight to be used. So let's first introduce the role of the Inner Way Frostclad Knight. The Tier 0 effect is, when the Hengblade successfully performs a deflection, it activates Snowbreak Spring, consuming 1 blade momentum to perform a slash, triggering at most once every 2 seconds. If you rely solely on deflection to trigger Snowbreak Spring, it will be a bit demanding for PvE gameplay. So we need to upgrade the Inner Way to obtain other effects. The Tier 1 effect of Frostclad Knight can be understood as, during the Moblade special skill buff duration, using Snowbreak Spring will summon angsty soldiers to assist, dealing extra damage. Frostclad Knight, Tier 3. After fully releasing the Hengblade's Light Attack Charge skill, or the Hengblade Dual Weapon skill, Snowbreak Spring can be activated. At this point, this Inner Way can start to take effect. So try to use Light Attack Charge skills as much as possible, and Dual Weapon skills to trigger Snowbreak Spring, thereby increasing the overall output of the Hengblade. Finally, Frostclad Knight, Tier 6, adds a Forgetfulness effect. After releasing Snowbreak Spring, you can release Grave Frost once without charging within 3 seconds. Afterward, Forgetfulness will enter a 6-second cooldown. Now we understand the Inner Way effects. Then let's analyze its specific function. As mentioned before, the Light Attack Charge skill of the Hengblade has low damage, mainly because it requires a short charging time before it deals damage. If this charging time is removed and followed by a pursuit, then the gains are acceptable. So we should make good use of the charge-free effect of Frostclad Knight Tier 6. Try to let the Light Attack Charge skill benefit from this effect immediately. Regarding the Hengblade's pursuit skills, one thing to add here, the Hengblade has 2 types, Light Attack Pursuit skills and Heavy Attack Pursuit skills. The pursuit we usually refer to is the Heavy Attack Pursuit skill. The Light Attack Pursuit skill can only be triggered after a successful deflection, and the multiplier is extremely low. It is only used in PvP for a fast strike. Then we continue to introduce the third core skill of the Hengblade, Fleeting Trace. Consumes 2 bars of blade momentum, deals multi-stage damage to enemies in front, and gains the Inner Passion effect at the end of the skill. It becomes a core skill because of the 2 effects it carries. The first is the Inner Passion effect. One of its effects is strengthening the Hengblade's martial arts skills, turning General's Bane Slash into General's Bane Stab. The second effect is allowing the Moblade Charge skill to increase charging speed by 50%. After releasing the Hengblade special skill, switch to the Moblade. During this Inner Passion duration, you can exactly finish 4 3-stage charges of the Moblade. The second is the Dread effect. Open the first martial arts talent of the Hengblade. You can see the specific description of the Dread effect. It increases your own health damage to enemies by 12%. Finally, a supplementary explanation of the Hengblade's martial arts skill, General's Bane. The effect consists of 2 slides. While hitting an enemy, it activates a variation. After releasing a special skill, it can further turn into General's Bane Stab, applying the Fearful Blade debuff to the enemy. The introduction of SNOWPARTING Blade ends here, followed by the explanation of Phalanxbane Blade. The Moblade has 3 core skills, the special skill, heavy attack charge skill, and martial arts skill. First is the special skill Legion Summoner. After release, you gain the Iron Guard effect. During the duration, the character's health damage will increase. At the same time, Hengblade martial arts skills, Hengblade pursuit skills, Moblade martial arts skills, and the second and third stage charges of the Moblade will all gain the Angsty Soldier's assist effect, thereby increasing the damage of these skills. So the Moblade special skill is just a buff skill. Just use it when the buff disappears. The second core skill of the Moblade is the heavy attack charge skill Burning Heart. This skill is only needed for the switch rotation and must be equipped with a tier 4 or higher exclusive Inner Way, Steadfast Devotion. Otherwise, there will be a shortage of blade momentum. Let's introduce the Inner Way Steadfast Devotion. The tier 0 effect is to increase the maximum stages of the Moblade charge skill from 2 stages to 3 stages. The tier 1 effect of Steadfast Devotion is to reduce the cooldown of the Moblade special skill to 1 second, allowing us to refresh the buff more flexibly. Tier 3 adds the Mountain Splitter effect, allowing the Moblade charge skill and Angsty Soldier's assist to guarantee critical and increase critical damage. You only need the Moblade's Angsty Soldier's assist to hit the enemy to trigger this effect. Tier 4 effect. While in the Inner Passion state, releasing the Moblade charge skill does not consume blade momentum. If we don't have this effect, it can ensure we release charge skills more frequently. Finally, the level 6 effect. It is actually an enhancement of the tier 3 effect, a pure numerical increase. The third core skill of the Moblade is the martial arts skill. After using Soul Burning, you enter a dragging blade state. Using it again will release total annihilation, dealing area damage. If the blade is dragged for more than 3 seconds, the damage dealt will increase. In the output cycle, generally, total annihilation is released immediately. The damage is also quite good. Regarding equipment, the weapon 4-piece set. The weapon 4-piece set, fixed choice of Cleft Peak or Rain Whisper. The armor 4-piece set, if there are no special requirements, just follow the weapon set. Regarding combo rotation and inner ways, Stone Split Strength has 2 rotations, namely the Hengblade rotation and the Moblade rotation, corresponding to different inner way combinations and rotation ideas. First is the Hengblade rotation. The advantage is that the basic Hengblade rotation is easy to pick up, even if the boss is hyperactive. You can resume the rotation at any time. The disadvantage is that the damage is not that high. Inner way choices. Frostclad Knight, Morale Chant, Throat Piercing Art. The fourth, Inner Way. Choose between 5-fold Bleed and Invigorated Warrior. Speedrun players can choose Breaking Point. Equipment attunement choices. For physical penetration and Snowparting Blade Light and Heavy Attack Varied Combo DMG boosts. Next, I will introduce 2 types of rotation. One is the most basic. One is used in CN server now. The basic rotation is very simple. It can be used to become familiar with the skills. Start with Legion Summoner, Flute skill, and Deflect. Dual weapon skill triggers, Snowbreak Spring. Q to get close to the enemy. Snowbreak. Immediately use Light Charge to trigger Forgetfulness. Don't use the Pursuit. Use the special skill first, then Snowbreak and Stab. Then keep using Light Charge and Snowbreak Spring until the special skill cooldown is almost over. Switch back to the Moblade and repeat the above rotation. The basic cycle is basically refreshing buffs. Then just keep using Light Charge plus Pursuit, but the damage is relatively low. Next, I'll talk about an advanced rotation currently used on the Chinese server. Friends who need it can practice in advance. Flute skill and Deflect. Legion Summoner. Dual weapon skill triggers, Snowbreak Spring. Directly use Fleeting Trace. Then hit the enemy with Snowbreak. Instant Light Charge triggers Forgetfulness. Don't use the Pursuit, use the Q twice. Snowbreak. Switch to Moblade Leaping Toad. Hit the enemy to perform a deflection. Dual weapon skill, Snowbreak, Light Charge triggers Forgetfulness. Then use a normal Light Charge plus Snowbreak Spring. Switch to Moblade for a quick stage to Q. Dual weapon skill again for Snowbreak. Instant Light Charge again to trigger Forgetfulness. Finally, switch to Moblade Legion Summoner and repeat the cycle. Due to the different versions, I'm not sure which rotation deals higher damage, so interested friends can test it out. Of course, if you practice in advance, you will become familiar with it much faster in the future. Regarding the advanced use of Forgetfulness, I will release another video. to elaborate in detail on why the new rotation is more reasonable. Next, we talk about Moblade. There are two types of Moblade rotations. One is a switching rotation with Frostclad Knight. The other is a more unorthodox pure Moblade rotation that abandons Frostclad Knight. Let's talk about the switching rotation first. Inner way choices are Frostclad Knight, Morale Chant, Throat Piercing Art, Steadfast Devotion. Equipment, Attunement choice for physical penetration and Phalanxbane Blade charge skill damage increase. Next is the rotation demonstration. Start with Legion Summoner. Play the flute to perform a deflection. Dual weapon without hitting the target to activate Snowbreak. Hengblade Q hits the enemy first, then Snowbreak Spring, triggering the throat piercing effect. Then Fleeting Trace, followed by Stage 2 Q. At this time, the enemy has the double debuffs of Dread plus Fearful Blade. At the same time, we have the Moblade Charge Acceleration buff. Scroll back to Moblade for 3 consecutive charges. At this point, the throat piercing buff just disappears. Dual weapon skill and Snowbreak, and another Snowbreak. Switch back to Moblade for an instant Q. Legion Summoner. Starting from the second cycle, you can use a Leaping Toad after the dual weapon switch. Then Hengblade Q, followed by Snowbreak Spring and a special skill. After that, it's consistent with the rotation above. Pure Moblade rotation is different, abandoning Frostclad Knight and Throat Piercing Art, completely maximizing the Moblade's charge damage. The inner ways are Steadfast Devotion, Morale, Chant, Adaptive Steel, and Battle Anthem. Pure Moblade is quite strict with the use of blade momentum. It's easy to run empty if not careful, leading to an inability to release skills. So please carefully remember the following rotation points. The pure Moblade rotation is divided into a 5-hit rotation and a 4-hit rotation. We need to cycle them alternately. Now, let's start. Start with Legion Summoner. Play the flute to perform a deflection. Switch to Hengblade and Q, Fleeting Trace, and Stab. Scroll switch to Moblade for 3 accelerated charges. Then immediately use Legion Summoner, followed by 2 non-accelerated charges. Connect with a total annihilation. The 5-hit rotation ends here. Enter the 4-hit rotation. Switch to Hengblade Q, Fleeting Trace, and Stab. Scroll switch to Moblade for 3 accelerated charges. Then, Legion Summoner. 1 non-accelerated charge and total annihilation. Add Leaping Toad. Play the flute to perform a deflection. And start the next 5-hit rotation. You should remember this point. After the 3 charges in each cycle, you must use Legion Summoner immediately. Otherwise, you'll find yourself short by 1 bar of blade momentum. That is the complete rotation for the Stone Split Strength path in the international server. Overall, in the international servers version, the Moblade rotation of Stone Split Strength can be considered mid-tier. There should be no problem reaching the top ranks in daily dungeons. However, the next few versions might be a bit tough. You can use the Hengblade rotation to comfortably transition through that difficult period, because the international server will eventually reach the current version of the Chinese server. The Moblade's charge damage has been increased significantly. Moreover, when hitting an exhausted enemy, you can obtain 3 additional instances of accelerated charging. So, to all my friends playing the Stone Split Strength path, do not be discouraged, the future is bright. At last, let me show you what is the path like in CN.